This topic is biology. The first word is algae. You can pronounce it algae or algae. This is a plural and uncountable noun. That means that you can say the algae are or the algae is. Algae are small and very simple plant organisms that grow in or near water and that do not have roots or stems. The adjective is algal. In the picture there you can see a frog swimming among algae. Here are a couple of usage tips. The singular is alga, but this is rarely used. Large algae found in the ocean is called seaweed. Generally speaking, plants that grow in the ocean and that are big enough to easily pick up in your hands, like what you see in the picture, are called seaweed. Algae produce a large percentage of the world's oxygen. You could also say algae produces, because, like I said, it can be used as an uncountable noun. The next word is aquatic. Aquatic is an adjective. It means living or growing in water, or happening in or on water. Let's see the word family. First we have the adverb aquatically, and then the noun aquatics. Aquatics are sports that are played in or on water. In the picture you can see some aquatic plants. Let's look at some collocations. We have aquatic life, an aquatic animal, an aquatic plant, and an aquatic sport. Let's see some examples. Aquatic animals include a wide range of different creatures, including fish, crabs, dolphins, and seals. I enjoy aquatic sports such as sailing and rowing. No, that's not about me, but you might see something like that in a dating profile, for example. This word is bud. It's a countable noun. A bud is a small part of a plant that will develop into a flower or leaf. The verb is also bud. To bud means to produce buds. In the picture you can see a few buds. I think rosebuds are more beautiful than roses in bloom. A flower in bloom is a flower that has opened. The tree is in bud, but I haven't seen any flowers yet. In bud means there are buds, but no flowers yet, like in the picture. The next word is cell. Cell. It's a countable noun. A cell is the smallest basic unit of a living thing that can exist independently. The adjective is cellular. Cellular. In the picture you can see some plant cells. Let's see some collocations. I've put these in the plural because more often than not we talk about more than one cell. We have animal cells, plant cells, red or white blood cells, brain cells, stem cells. We also often say that cells divide, And if you make that into a noun, we have cell division. Let's see some example sentences. If you have a low white blood cell count, you might have a viral infection. The nucleus of a cell contains DNA. The nucleus is the central part of a cell. This word is decay. Decay. It's a verb. It has a couple of meanings. Number one, to be destroyed slowly by natural processes, or to destroy something this way. Number two, to become gradually damaged or worse. The noun is also decay. It means the process or result of decaying. This wood is decaying. Here's a usage tip. In colloquial English, we normally use the verb rot instead of decay for organic material. For example, the wood had rotted, or they let the food rot. If we don't take care of our teeth, they will decay and dentists will make more money. The dead mouse was already starting to decay. They've allowed that part of the city to decay. This word is endangered. Endangered. It's an adjective. It means close to becoming extinct. If a type of plant or animal is endangered, it means that there are not many of them left. The verb is endanger. To endanger means to put somebody or something in a dangerous situation. Here are some collocations. We have an endangered species, an endangered animal, an endangered bird, and an endangered plant. Elephants need to be protected because they are endangered. Chimpanzees are an endangered species. Next we have the verb eradicate. Eradicate. This means to get rid of or destroy something bad completely. Let's see the word family. First we have the noun eradication, which is the process. And then we have the adjective eradicable. If something is eradicable, it means it can be eradicated. Polio has almost been eradicated thanks to vaccines. The government is making a concentrated effort to eradicate corruption. Now we have evergreen. Evergreen. This is an adjective. It's used to describe certain plants. It means having leaves that stay green throughout the whole year. The noun is also evergreen. An evergreen is a plant that has green leaves throughout the whole year. Here are a couple of collocations. An evergreen plant and an evergreen tree. This is an evergreen plant, so even in winter it will look nice. Pine trees are evergreen. Now we have evolve. Evolve. This is a verb. It has a couple of meanings. Number one, of living things. To develop over time into forms that are better adapted to certain environments. Number two, to develop gradually, or to make something or someone develop gradually. Let's see the word family. First we have the noun, evolution, which is the process. And then we have the adjective, evolutionary. Evolutionary just means related to evolution. Here's a usage tip. It is often followed by from or into. These two animals evolved from the same ancestor. Facebook rapidly evolved into a multi-billion-dollar company. Land plants evolved from green algae. Golf, like most sports, has evolved over time. If you want to be a novelist, it's important to evolve your own writing style. Next we have the verb flower. I'm sure you know the noun. It's what you can see in the picture there. But a lot of people don't know that it's also a verb. To flower means to produce flowers. It's something that plants or trees do. Let's see the word family. We have the noun flower and the adjective flowering. Flowering means producing or able to produce flowers. These trees are flowering. This plant flowers in spring. Do you know when the tree will start to flower? Now we have food chain. Food chain. This is a countable noun. A food chain is a group of living things in which each type eats the one below it in the group. For example, a plant is eaten by an insect. That insect is eaten by a small animal. That small animal is eaten by a larger animal, etc. Here's a usage tip. It is often preceded by the. For example, lions are at the top of the food chain. Sharks play an important role in ocean ecosystems by eating sick or weak animals that are below them in the food chain. Carnivores are above herbivores in a food chain because carnivores eat herbivores. Now we have gene. Gene is a countable noun. A gene is a part of the DNA in a cell that controls the physical development, behavior, etc. of a living thing. A living thing gets its genes from its parents. Let's see the word family. We have the adjective genetic and the noun genetics. Genetics is the study of genes, or the group of genetic characteristics of an organism. Now some collocations. We have a defective gene, a dominant gene, a recessive gene, and a gene mutation. A gene mutation is a change in an organism's genetic structure that makes it different to others of the same species. This rare disease is caused by a defective gene. Gene mutations are essential to evolution. The next word is moss. Moss. It is a countable and an uncountable noun. It's normally uncountable, but you can say, for example, different types of mosses. So, yes, it can be countable as well. Moss is a very small green or yellow plant that mainly grows on wet earth, trees, or rocks. The adjective is mossy. These rocks are covered with moss. Some examples. We met a biologist who studies different types of mosses. Much of the forest floor was covered with moss. This word is parasite. Parasite. It's a countable noun. A parasite is an animal or plant that lives in or on a different type of animal or plant and gets food from it. There are two adjectives. They are parasitic and parasitical. And the adverb is parasitically. Fleas are a parasite. Obviously, in the picture there, that's not a flea, that's a cat, but fleas often make cats and dogs scratch. Mistletoe is a popular Christmas decoration, but it is also a parasite because it steals water and nutrients from trees. The next word is pollen. Pollen. It's an uncountable noun. Pollen is a fine powder, it is usually yellow, that is produced by flowers and then carried by the wind, insects, or birds to other flowers of the same kind, causing them to produce seeds. The very small dots of yellow in the picture there are pollen. Many people are allergic to pollen. Pollen is necessary in the reproduction of flowering plants. And next we have the verb pollinate. To pollinate means to carry pollen from one plant to another so that it can produce seeds. Let's see the word family. We have the noun pollination, which is the process, and another noun, pollinator. A pollinator is an animal or insect that carries pollen. And yes, I do know that technically an insect is an animal, but that's just how we talk in English. We often talk about animals and insects. Just like a tree is a plant, but we often say plants and trees. Many trees are pollinated by the wind. Bees pollinate many plants and therefore play an important role in ecosystems. The next word is sap. Sap. It's an uncountable noun. Sap is the liquid in plants that carries water and nutrients to all parts of the plant. It's what you can see in the picture there. The adjective is sapless, and that means without sap. Insects that feed on sap can have a detrimental effect on plants. Remember, feed on means eat. Maple syrup is made from the sap of maple trees. Now we have shed. Shed. This is a verb. Of plants or animals. To lose a covering such as leaves, hair, or skin because it falls off as part of a natural process. Some trees shed their bark. Humans constantly shed skin cells in small quantities, but a snake sheds an entire layer of its skin several times a year. Those trees have already shed their leaves. And a little usage tip. The simple past and past participle is shed. It's an irregular verb. Now we have stem. Stem is a countable noun. A stem is a long, thin part of a plant above the ground from which leaves and flowers grow. The adjective is stemmed. If something is stemmed, it has a stem. The verb is also stem. To stem something means to stop something from spreading or developing. The arrow is pointing to the stem of the flower. Most roses have thorns on their stems. Thorns are the small, sharp things you can see in the picture. Next we have wild. Wild. This is a singular and plural noun. It's always preceded by the. You can't put a in front of it. In other words, you can't say wild. First we have the singular form, which is the wild. A natural environment that is not controlled by humans. And next, the plural form, the wilds. An area where not many people live and which is difficult to access. Let's see the word family. We have the adjective wild and the adverb wildly. Wildly means in an uncontrolled or extreme way. For example, Frank was dancing wildly at the party. There are now more tigers living in captivity than in the wild. In captivity means under the control of humans. He left his life in the city and decided to go live alone in the wilds of Alaska. And now we have wildlife. Wildlife. Wildlife is an uncountable noun. It means animals and plants that live and grow independently of people. In the pictures, you can see some African wildlife. Conservationists in Australia are working to protect the native wildlife. In case you're wondering what that animal is, that's an echidna, which is an Australian animal. The last one for this section is a phrasal verb. It's wipe something out. To wipe something out means to destroy or remove something completely. Evidence suggests that dinosaurs were wiped out by a large asteroid or comet. The earthquake wiped out entire villages. The disease wiped some species out entirely. It's a separable phrasal verb, which is why you can put out after the object. Yesterday, I went for a walk through some gardens, where I saw lots of wildlife. It wasn't exactly like being in the wild, but it was still nice to be surrounded by nature. In the middle of the gardens, there's a large pond. There's quite a lot of algae in the pond, as well as many other aquatic plants, such as water lilies. You can also see moss growing on some of the rocks near the pond. There were some rather large fish in the pond that were clearly at the top of the food chain. I also saw some beautiful flowers. I sneezed a bit because I'm allergic to pollen. As it's the beginning of spring, not all of the plants had flowered yet. Some of them had buds on their stems, but no flowers. There were also some bees buzzing around. Some people can't stand bees, but they're very important for ecosystems because they pollinate lots of plants. It's concerning that some species of bees are now endangered. It's troubling to think what would happen if they were wiped out entirely. There were some plants that had clearly been destroyed by a parasite. I spoke to one of the gardeners about it, and he said that some parasites were impossible to eradicate. A part of the gardens is like a small forest. The gardeners don't usually clean up the dead plants in there because when they decay, they add nitrogen to the soil. There are lots of evergreen trees in this part that stay green all year. I sometimes like to touch the sap that comes through some of the trees' trunks. Unlike deciduous trees, evergreens don't shed their leaves when it gets cold. They evolved to adapt to low temperatures. In simple terms, things evolve by desirable characteristics being passed down to future generations. In other words, plants or animals with the most desirable genes for a certain environment are more likely to survive. It's strange to think that all of this life evolved from single-celled organisms that lived millions of years ago. In other words, organisms that just consisted of one cell.